All right, guys, for my first chapter was 17, and it is group development. So start off here with the objectives. Things we're going to look at are the stages of group development, characteristics of an effective group, how to deal with dysfunctional members, and then in hand, how to resolve that conflict, and then the prep for the meetings. So the first thing it goes into is the 5 stages of group development. The first is forming. This is the beginning stage where anxiety and uncertainty rules. So what I wanted to look at here was what us as future leaders are responsible for here. And in this first step, it's responsible for keeping the group together. That would mean overcoming any of those anxieties, getting people engaged, and really making sure the objective of why the group is meeting is clear. When looking at these groups, I wanted to think about it as what we will see in a school, and especially as an administrator. And so this is not any kind of school-wide group. This would be select groups. So either you're doing staff development, some kind of specific task or objective you're designing a group for, or as you'll learn in the next chapter, the action research plan would also be an example. So storming, this is the conflict. This is our first time there's conflict, which thinking back to college, especially undergrad, and doing these group projects, you can remember conflict being probably the person is not engaged or somebody causing some kind of problem. So as a leader, we must restore the peace among the members and maintain the positive relationship in order to get to that goal. Again, I think this is an area where that inclusive leadership comes in, somewhere where we're trying to include all people in the objective and in the goal and understanding everybody's feelings and keeping the focus on the task. Next up is norming. This is where the group starts to really run. And us as leaders need to focus on switching to a facilitator role. So this is when people are working efficiently and understanding objectives, which leads into the next part, performing. And this is where the group is at its highest proficiency. The members are completing tasks regularly. And as a leader, our job is to challenge everybody. And also tying directly into that inclusive leadership is the positive reinforcement. So making sure we are positively reinforcing the behaviors we want, recognizing staff members for their good work. And then finally, the adjourning. This is where the team leaves and adjourns. So you're either going to leave on a positive note where you reach the outcome you wanted and that should be celebrated, or negatives, which may be met with conflict. Either way, though, we should have been collecting data and looking for ways to improve. Now, I wanted to look specifically at characteristics of what our effective groups would look like. The first here is a group goal is aligned with the organizational goal. Again, tying directly into inclusive leadership, we tie in either the school or the district-wide goal. So you're pulling goals from your school and making sure that is a main focus of the group, keeping everybody in line. They need to be collaborative in nature. So they shouldn't be just us leading. Again, looking back to that word facilitate, I think is important. Or facilitating the group. Right back to inclusive leadership, we have diversity and trust are highly valued. I think it's important to have the diversity in just opinions even, and everybody should be trusting of each other and understand the other person's going to pull their weight and really value each other's opinions. The organization must support the group with time and resources. I think anytime with teachers, this is important. Giving time to complete the task and the resources they need. And also this data collection, as I talked about earlier, is important. So anytime you're designing groups, these are some of the goals you should have in mind, with several of these tying right into inclusive leadership. Okay, I wanted to look specifically at inclusivity and group work. Again, just pulling the things that I just talked about, making them more clear, integrating school-wide initiatives, selecting diverse members, and then the praise and celebrate positives. Now, as we all know, anytime in group work, there is the chance for a dysfunctional member. They might not be causing conflict yet, but they are at least dysfunctional and not holding their end of the bargain. One of the first things we need to do is observe the member. Watch them in action and then try to identify what their triggers are for their dysfunctional behaviors. Is it somebody in the group? Is it a subject? Is it a time of day? And really just all comes back to looking at behavior in students as well, just pulling it to the adults realm of things. Next up, we try to understand the member. So especially as adults, there is strong reasoning for why we believe the way we believe. And I think as the leader, it's our job to understand why this person feels that way. And then are they even aware that they're disrupting the group? They might think they're being a functional member. They might not know that other people have complained or feel disrupted by them. Next, communicate with the member. So really just discuss the behavior and let them know. Because like I said before, they might not know they were disruption. I think it's also important to know that this isn't a concrete step-by-step process. In any one of these steps, the dysfunctional behavior might be corrected. And then you can just end the process there. But if it does continue to go and you make it all the way to level 4, this is where we establish rules for future behavior. So they've been addressed. They've been reminded about their disruption. We've understood their disruptions. Now we need to develop rules for the future. So really giving them concrete rules that target whatever behavior this group member is showing. And inevitably, there will be conflict in some nature. Conflict and decision-making is natural. But this is where the inclusivity comes in. We must keep the focus on the problem, not the personal differences. We stay inclusive by keeping the subject matter on the problems at hand. Anytime we start making personal attacks, it becomes muddied waters, and we lose track of what we should be doing. Here's a strategy for conflict resolution. First, ask the member to state his or her conflicting position, and ask the member, so both sides need to give their opinions in their own words. Much like the last problem solving, this one can stop at any level. And sometimes just flat out telling it in your own words can help the other person better understand. They might not understand what you were trying to say. Then you're going to have the member restate the other side's position, showing that they fully understand what the other person's trying to say. Then you ask if the conflict still exists. Once understanding each other's opinions better, the conflict might disappear. Then you need to ask for underlying value position. Why are they so committed to this? If we find out why they're so committed to a decision or a problem, they might actually start to make more sense. Or we might be able to talk them away from it. Or come to a compromise. And then fifth, we need to ask the other members of the group, ask another member of a group for a third position. Now, this third position can either transcend or compromise from the competing positions. You're looking for a third party to come in and kind of build a bridge between the two. And if at the end, if all this does not help, we decide that reconciliation cannot happen and we move on. If two competing sides are that tied to their feelings, we're not going to change it. We need to figure out how the group will work without and move on. I think this is incredibly important too. How to incorporate inclusive leadership during the conflict. There's several things we can look at. Being positive with each other, understanding each other's backgrounds, but I think the key is keeping the focus on the problem. When we start taking personal attacks, we're not being inclusive. We're not taking in the other's opinions when we're doing that. We're not trusting or respecting the others. We have to keep all issues tied to the problem at hand, not personal beliefs. And then I just wanted to wrap this all up with how we prepare for group meetings. I thought this was important, specifically thinking of like weekly staff meetings, especially as administrator. First thing they gave us was the agenda. So the leader must be prepared with a clear task and purpose. This agenda helps keep the group focused with a clear outcome. Now, the agenda does not have to be printed out and passed out. It can be less formal and just be something prepared. But the leader has to come with a prepared agenda. If you just come in freelancing and not knowing what you're going to do, things are going to go awry pretty quick. Next, there needs to be established ground rules. All this means is the members know what's expected of them. Do they have a task they need to complete beforehand? What materials do they need to bring? How are they expected to behave? Is this a group discussion or is this a sit back and listen? All these things need to be decided before we can expect the behavior that we want. And then finally, the guided discussion. Easy for me to say. The leader should prepare a set of questions that will help initiate and maintain group discussion. They need to be goal-oriented in nature and aid the leader in facilitating the group. Again, this doesn't have to be written down, but just preparing a handful of questions that you can go to when things get slow would be very helpful. And then again, thinking, how can we inclusive leadership be integrated here? How can preparing help integrate? I think one thing where inclusivity can be used is inclusiveness. I don't know if I've been saying that the right way. Inclusiveness. Where we can include inclusiveness is looking at how we select our groups. So including all grade levels where possible, including all genders, races, religious backgrounds, gender, sexual orientation, everything, including all types of people in the discussion, I think gets a more well-rounded opinion on what's happening. You're going to get more perspectives from different people and come up with the best possible answer. Anytime we're just kind of sticking the same people together, we're not going to get as many creative answers. Okay, and then the discussion question I have that will be posted on Canvas is, as a future administrator, when you're looking for staff group work, how will you create an inclusive group environment? So I will leave you with that, and I look forward to hearing our discussion. Thank you, everybody. I hope you enjoyed.